Yeah, I think so. She said she was. We'll see.
Here comes that crowd.
You guys got the place to yourself this evening.
Is there gonna be popcorn?
Oh,
No. No popcorn. I didn't.
you just get all
Learn to understand that man.
No, I don't.
We'll
think
see.
so. I mean,
It would be hard to.
I think it's like to look at someone's face and say.
If you saw Reverend Bob's sermon, we'll see.
Yeah.
It's like,
Bizarre.
yeah.
We are live, everybody, and welcome to the UUTC Climate Series Kickoff. Our guests this evening are Doug Miller, Lynn Barnett, Lauren Agrella-Sevilla, and Aaron Jefferson Baker on the far end. I'm Bob Bennett, and I'd like to welcome you and thank you for coming to our first Climate Series Kickoff. Well, this is the only kickoff, I guess. Anyway, we'll be asking some questions, answering and asking some questions tonight, and fielding additional questions those in the audience, both live and online, would care to ask. So let's get started. We've got a list of about 9 questions, and the first one is, what got you on a bike in the first place, and what is your life history of biking? Can each of you sum that up in, say, 2 minutes or so?
Yeah, sure. I can start. I started riding a bike like most people did when I was a kid, and it was just sort of representative of freedom. It was the way to get around the neighborhood a little bit faster and to explore a little bit further into the woods. So that was how I started. And then, the history of it was I rode bikes a lot, probably until I got my driver's license, and then it stopped for a little while because I had a different mode of transportation. And then after college, I spent about a year living in Charleston, South Carolina, which was a lot of fun, but I ate a lot of fried seafood and spent a lot of time on the beach, and I gained some weight. I was a little out of shape. Moved with my now wife to Wyoming, and I started to spend just a lot more time outside and got back on my bike and started riding trails again. And like within 3 weeks, 3 months that summer, I was back down. I think I lost 40 pounds in a summer. And it's just been with me ever since. It's become a real big part of my health regimen, mentally, physically, everything. And just, it's a lot of fun. I've learned to love it.
Lynn?
I have ridden my whole life. I've never stopped riding, and I always feel like a kid when I'm on the bike. And it is a big sense of freedom, and the weather's been tremendous, so I've been out on it 6-7 days a week, and I do paved trails. I don't do mountain biking because I know I'd hurt myself doing that. So, and I do errands, and I just now got an e-bike, and so I really love that. And I load it up with my groceries and errands and things, and
You own a car?
so I drive less.
You own a car?
We have 3 cars.
Oh my.
But yes, one's a 73 Chevy Impala, so that didn't count, but it runs. So anyway, yes, we have cars, but we have 3 bikes.
It does sound like you spend a lot of time on your bicycle.
Yes.
Lauren, how about you?
My first bike I got when I was 7. It was the Dusty Rose banana seat bike in the mid-'80s there. And we were an Air Force family, military family. My folks moved around with us every few years to different cities, and so whatever neighborhood we were in, that was part of our freedom, our exploratory freedom. Bike to the pool, bike to the library, bike to school as kids. And it wasn't ever really any sort of athletic pursuit for me until during and after college, and then I really started enjoying riding my bike long distances and doing some bike touring. So my sweetheart Matthew and I have had the privilege of traveling different parts of this side of the world on our bikes and spending multiple weeks.
You travel with your bikes?
We've done some multi-week bike tours where you leave your car wherever you're leaving it and take off on the bikes for a few weeks and then end up back at the car somehow. So
Okay.
Enjoying traveling and the world on bikes. And when we settled here in Brevard with our kids, one of our thoughts was, wonder what we could do to not have to use our car as much, and it's been possible. So we're privileged to live downtown, which makes it very possible. Lots of things are within a stone's throw of where we are, and so we ride our bikes most days. We've got way too many bikes, and many of them were given to us. We like to tool with bikes. We've got an eccentric collection, an eccentric fleet, as we like to say, of all kinds of bikes that are a lot of fun to ride. So we get a lot of joy out of it.
You don't have the banana seat anymore?
No, but don't I wish?
But you could
That would
find
be-
one. You
yeah,
could find one.
That would be really fun.
They were
yeah.
popular.
Yeah.
Aaron, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I have a similar story, I guess. I grew up in Florida, and my dad was a Methodist minister, and we moved around a lot. But living in Florida, it's a lot of suburban sprawl, and in order to get out of that and kind of explore a little bit as a kid, the bike allowed you to do that, and also kind of a sense of responsibility at an age, before you have a car and you can, take it upon yourself to get yourself to soccer practice or, whatever you want to do. So, and then I moved up here to attend Brevard College, and, the mountain biking thing was just kind of coming to life here in Brevard, and I got swept up in that and started riding mountain bikes, and got a job at Oscar Blues Brewery. And at the time, they've changed this program a little bit then, but at the time, every employee, if you worked there for 2 years, you got a mountain bike, like a hand-built steel frame mountain bike. And so, at the time, it was like getting a $6,000 bonus, because they're pretty expensive bikes. So I was, excited by that, and just got more and more into mountain biking, and eventually got, a couple, I have a gravel bike that I tool around town on, and spend a lot of time sort of commuting back and forth. And I have a son, Henry, who's 9, and he loves riding bikes, and we go, to the farmer's market every Saturday, and dodge through downtown as best we can. So.
All right, so you and Doug are more off-roadish, I think, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
I still
Lynn
ride
or
around
Lauren
town.
Lauren, are you in regular trails or?
Yeah, I would call myself a bike commuter, and I have been a trail runner for a lot of years, and I'm recovering from some knee surgery, so I've gotten on a mountain bike a few times in the last
Okay.
month or so I think I might be making a little shift there. But,
On the mend.
Yeah.
Okay, next question is to talk about your experience commuting within Brevard. How far is it from your home to your job, and did that commute have a role in where you live? Doug?
Yeah, yes and yes. So I live in town. I work at Brevard College 9 months a year. So I can commute to work on my bike, or I can even walk to work, really. But I like to ride my bike to work. There are times I feel very unsafe doing it. It's not an easy 1 mile to get from my house to work, which is really how far it is. I've clocked it. It's a mile. I have to cross some very busy intersections. The roads and the sidewalks in town are just really not built to share. You have to make choices constantly about whether you want to be on the road with no shoulder, where cars are coming by you at even in town, there's places where they're coming by at 40 or 45 miles an hour, or getting on a sidewalk where you might be interfering with someone else coming down the sidewalk who's walking with a baby or a stroller or something. So there's always these choices you have to make as a commuter to try to, I think I take like 4 or 5 different routes to work, and I don't have a specific one. I really can't figure out what the best one is, because it just sort of depends on the day. So that's my experience doing it. I do it. I'm not as hardcore where I'm going to go in the middle of the snow in the winter in the rain, but I try to do it as much as I can, even though, like I said, it's not the most fun in the sense of, feeling like you have the space to do it safely.
Right. Lynn, how about your commuting experience?
Oh, well, I'm retired, but I volunteer 1 day a week at the Visitor Center in downtown Brevard, and I live out by the high school, so it's a mile. But I do my errands on the bike, and I do a combination road. I try to go back roads, instead of like country club road. But like coming here tonight, I have a rear view mirror, so I'm riding in the street and then I see a car coming. I thought, okay, I'll hop on the sidewalk. And I try to be, since so many people can be aggressive or anti-bike, I try to be ultra considerate, because I hate when I see cyclists that are, to the other people. I want them to have a good experience when they pass me or whatever. And when somebody gives me a wide berth, when they're going around, I'll wave at them and all those things. And if I see a bunch of cars behind me, I'll pull over and let them all pass, so that they aren't aggressive to me or another cyclist down the road. So, but yeah, I don't have a commute anymore, but I ride sidewalks except right in downtown, sidewalks and street and neighborhoods, and the trail.
And you, Lauren, I've seen you around at different locales in town.
Yeah, we've got a couple bikes that stand out too. They're kind of
Right, a unique configuration.
Yeah. I did want to say it's a huge privilege to be able to ride a bike, and I think like our economic flexibility. So sometimes we talk about bikes as being cheaper, you don't have to maintain as much, and that is true. And yet, my sweetheart Matthew and I have the work flexibility to be able to work more locally and to be able to flex and flow with that. So that's enabled us to have just one car in our family with our 2 children. And we also have friends and family who are super generous at sharing cars with us. So yesterday I borrowed a car because we both needed a car on the same day. So it's not always, it's not it's not 100% bikeable life that we've got. But I work at Brevard College, I work up at Trails Carolina in DuPont Forest, and I work at several places locally teaching yoga and mindfulness. So I'm able to bike out toward the Oaks Nursing Home and out that way toward Pisgah Forest and in town for most of our errands on many days. And when we travel farther afield than that, then it's time to borrow a car.
Very neat. How about you, Aaron?
Yeah, I live downtown, right around the corner from Doug, actually, near the Tannery Skate Park, and it's 3.5 miles to Oscar Blues, where I work, and I definitely commute by bike as much as I can. I'm running for city council, and I've been doing some events by bike that way, getting around, and it's great. I'll echo some of what Doug said about the safety issue, the multi-use path that the city has. It almost gets to downtown, and it almost gets right to where I live. And I think about, the day when that's completed and when I can literally from my door get on the bike path and be on it the entire way from my house to Oscar Blues, and just, the peace of mind that you have on a separated bike path is hard to beat and hard to put into words, really.
So the next question moves into if health concerns drove anything of decisions to take up cycling, and as it may have been coincidental that it caused your weight loss that summer, but did any of you take up cycling because of health concerns?
I mean, it's one of the reasons I continue to do it, just to stay healthy and to be able to continue to move, and feel good, feel like I can do things and stay active. So that's part of the reason I want to continue doing it. It definitely helped me lose weight when I initially started getting back on my bike, and I think that just says, everything that 3 months on a bike will do that. And it wasn't like I was riding everywhere. I again lived in a small town and was able to commute to my job from town. I just was trying to stay more active, and it really does do a lot there. I mean, yeah, there's only good things to say about biking and being healthy.
And it's fun too, yeah.
And it's fun, so it's not just your physical health, it's mental health too.
How about you, Lynn?
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. I want to keep going, and hopefully old won't catch up with me, you know, and just keep moving. And I'm kind of hyperactive, but every time I get on the bike, I feel like a kid. So most definitely, it's a fun way to exercise instead of the gym. Rainy days in the gym.
It's kind of hard to ignore the health, aspect of it, but how about you, Lauren?
It's not the first thing on my mind, to be honest. I mean, it's a mental health issue, I think. I really don't like getting in the car. Getting in the car makes me cranky. I don't really like what cars stand for, and I just feel like I just feel better. Like it's so much more fun to get on a bike. Doesn't matter if I'm going out for a ride for the day or to the grocery store or just dropping the kids at Brevard Elementary School, whatever. It's fun. I just I feel the aliveness of it, as opposed to, for me anyway, my relationship with cars is not excellent. So I really love the bike for this part.
Yeah. I think too, there's the mental health thing, I think is definitely huge. And also I feel like if you experience your city by bike, you learn so much more, and you feel more connected to the people around you. It's very hard to feel connected to the person in the car next to you.
Yeah.
But if you're riding by somebody on the bike path, or you notice things like, oh, they put a new sidewalk there, or oh, there's a new house going up over there. You just like recognize changes that are going on in your city much more than, if you're just stuck in a car blasting a podcast or whatever you're doing. So yeah, the mental health side, I think, obviously the physical health benefits are big as well. I was going to mention that I have bad knees too. I have soccer injuries from high school, and that was part of the reason why I was intrigued by mountain biking, because it was so easy on your knees. You're locked in a position, so you're not feeling like you're going to lose your legs at any point. And so, it's kind of a low impact movement as well, which I think.
Sustainable, right? Like,
Yeah.
you can last a minute.
Yeah.
Okay. In commuting,
Yeah.
within town, I assume, any obstacles here in town? Are there any specific bottlenecks in your personal path to work or life, such as grocery shopping, or that have caused you concern, made you feel that you were not in a safe place? So I guess local obstacles to your enjoying cycling. How about you, Doug?
I feel like I've already spoken to this a little
Plenty
bit,
of
but
them.
yeah, there's so many. I mean, it is really, truly about the infrastructure to be able to do this. I mean, there's a part of it where you obviously need to have a bike, and you need to have some other flexibility to be able to take a little more time to get places, but without the infrastructure to ride safely around town, it really makes it hard. And I think all of us have probably had the same kind of experiences where there's a moment where you just don't have room and you feel like you're going to get hit. I've had just outside my door coming back to my house where I've had to slam on brakes and almost run straight into somebody who just pulled out in front of me, didn't see me. It's easy to do that if you're a vehicle and you're trying to watch out for other vehicles. So, the separated pathway is the gold standard. You feel so much safer on a separated pathway. Aside from that, separated bike lanes are the next best thing. Painted pathways on the road, essentially, that allow bikes to have space to ride. But what we have are really, we don't really have any of that around town. So if you're trying to ride on my street, Caldwell, there's just no room for bikes. You have to be on the sidewalk, or you have to share the road with very little space to share. And that's the same on Broad Street. It's the same on Main Street, and these are the primary corridors in our town that everybody has to use to get somewhere.
Yeah, it would be amazing if there was just even a little section to the side of all the streets that you could fit. Sometimes I try to squeeze all the way over on Country Club, and the road is just horrendous anyway. It needs, they were gonna do it this summer, but summer's over and it hadn't happened yet, repaving. But if you go really far to the right, then you got to worry about the little drains that are there as well. So you have to watch everyone and the holes, and so yeah, it would be amazing to have bike paths that are separate all over.
So the group we were talking earlier, And as many drivers of cars wish that bicyclists would just use the sidewalks. So would you talk about how you maybe bent the rules of the road and how riding on sidewalks is problematic? Doug touched on that, but if you could pick up on that, Aaron.
Yeah, I mean, you know, a lot of our sidewalks aren't in very good shape either. I mean, so, yeah, I mean, it's not the best place. I do it, you know, occasionally with my son because I definitely feel, you know, a sense of safety with him, like separated off of the road. Mm-hmm. But, you know, sidewalks are definitely not the place. I mean, you know, sidewalks are very much built for walking. In you know, it's infrastructure for walking.
Would you say it's not ideal by any means, but it's sometimes necessary?
Yeah, I mean, that's where we are for sure. Not ideal, but, you know, sometimes you make the choice just based on, you know, trying to get safely to where you're going. So definitely not ideal, but.
How about you, Lauren?
Yeah, when we've got our kids, we've got one bike that's a tricycle that won't fit on the sidewalk, but they're on the sidewalk, even if I'm in the wide bike. In that the road just sometimes doesn't feel safe. I mean, I feel like biking in this area, you really have to find your own level of personal comfort. I know there are other families who would look at what Matthew and I have chosen to do with our family and wonder if we have our heads on straight around some of the decisions that we're making. We have strong commitment to biking, and we evaluate the safety of what we're going to do with the fog, the light. We've got reflective vests. So we're those folks sometimes, times a day, times a year. So I think you just have to really evaluate, like Doug was saying, and Lynn, right? Like what you feel comfortable doing in a given moment, where you feel comfortable crossing, when you're going to hop on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And I would hope it would be easier. I do think it'd be more conducive to people biking if it were easier to be able to feel safe and not have to get really heady about where you're going to be.
There's like a chicken and the egg thing as well too, where it's like I feel like people that are in cars frustrated by bicycles are like, well, why are they doing that? Because it's not the right place for them. But as a cyclist and people that are doing it, if you're not out there doing it, then the infrastructure is not going to come. You know, it's not going to follow unless more people are doing it. So it's sort of an and/or thing. And right now it's obviously not perfect, but.
Well, let me follow up on that.
Sure.
If you could ask the city to do one specific thing to improve bicycle commuting, what one thing do you think they could implement the most quickly to make your commute easier? Go ahead.
I mean, the multi-use path, I think, is, like Doug was saying, that's the gold standard for, you know, safety and also as a symbol that the city cares about this. And, you know, plans for that. The plan is great. I would encourage anybody to look on the city's website and find the plan. And it's been around for almost 20 years, the complete plan. And it has it going all the way, you know, from Esteta or from the forest entrance all the way, you know, on the current, all the way to the high school. And then parts of it connecting Rosenwald up to Bracken Mountain as well. And it really, you know, it's a good plan. All of the schools would be safely connected by the bike path once it's completed. I mean, that seems like a huge goal. There's also some the downtown master plan that was just revised has some pretty easy changes that could be made. They show dedicated painted bike lanes on the road on Morgan Street and Jordan Street. So going in, those are the one lanes in downtown going in opposite directions. And that really just creates like a safe way to get from one side of downtown to the other and then back, and puts, you know, an emphasis on bikes on those particular streets. So it would be great if it was on every street, but we're not quite there yet. But we can just paint it's a green, you know, stripe on the side of the road, and as a separated area. And I think that would be go a long way, and it's just paint, you know, that's relatively inexpensive, so I would
Okay.
love to see that.
Let me ask Lauren, how about a wish list for the city, Lauren?
I don't know if there are any quick or easy fixes. I really appreciate all the references Aaron's making to the things that have been happening, and we're hoping to push forward a little bit in terms of the, getting the path expanded and connecting key places. If you can get from school to, the grocery stores, to the post office, sort of like major errand places, that would be a huge shift. I think what we need really is an attitude shift, though, and that's the hard part. I think we need more patience, because these infrastructure decisions and processes take time, and they take some money and, right, patience. And then just more patience with having cyclists on the road as we figure out how this is gonna work most safely. So, yeah, my wish list actually involves collaboration. Car cyclist, driver cyclist collaboration. Trying to get on the same page about what we want this county to stand for, and how we can work together.
How about you, Lynn?
Yes, I would love I've seen the bike path maps of future, and I'd love to see that move along. I used to volunteer at the Boys and Girls Club, and I was the only one on a bike that arrived on a bike with all these kids. Here's this old lady on her bike, where are your bikes? But they said, you know, there's not a safe place for them to go. There is a bike path right there, but it's just on Gallimore.
Right.
How about you, Doug? What the city would
There's
do?
been some great ideas, and some of this stuff has been talked about before, but even the little things, like just more bike racks, just a place to park your bike downtown
Yes.
where you can put it away and lock it up safely. I think that would go a long way just to showing the commitment to cycling, just those small visible things. I was excited to see a repair station outside the chamber building. That's a
Yes.
nice nod to, you know, being open to cyclists coming into town, but yeah, I think painted pathways are the first step, because like Aaron said, it's very easy. It doesn't take much. It's paint. It's pretty cheap. You don't have to do any real construction. But aside from that, just, yeah, more commitment to the little things like bike racks.
All right, let's change gears now, and about the impacts of climate change. Had an impact on your commitment to biking. Do you have any idea of how many miles you personally are traveling by bicycle every week? And would you be driving if you weren't bicycling for these miles?
It's a mile to work, so 2 miles a day if I'm just going back and forth to work, which is not a ton, but it adds up. I would definitely be driving if it weren't for my bike to get me there. I don't necessarily see, the climate part of it is a part of it. I certainly think we all need to do our part to you know, get less cars on the road and more bikes on the road. That's always a good thing. But the real reason I do it is, you know, like we've said, it's fun. That's the number one reason. Down from that, yeah, being able to take my car off the road and not buy as much gas and contribute to, you know, climate change in that way is great. It does feels good. It's another one of those, just, there's a million good reasons to be on a bike, and this is just another one of those good reasons that you get to take a car off the road. You take up less space when you park somewhere, which, of course, if you're committed to that, you know, as a town, you can have less asphalt, too, if we think about that. Bikes
Yeah.
don't need to park in an asphalt spot. We can park them on top of grass or anywhere else, so there's, you know, if we really commit fully the infrastructure that we need, it would also help reduce our carbon footprint in that way.
Okay, how about you, Lynn?
Well, since I got my e-bike, it has a little odometer, so I know I've done 1,200 miles since October, and not in the brutally cold because my eyes water too much, but I would say 600 miles of that were probably saved from driving my car, because I always do an errand before I come back home, even if I'm just out for fun. So I've been in my car a lot less.
Okay, Lauren?
Yeah, I can't give a number really. I mean, we do several trips a day that are 1 mile or 2 miles in length, and the farthest place I work is a 10-mile round trip. And it has been an environmental decision for our household to only have one car, because everything about cars is sort of hard to stomach. You know, you go to the gas station and you're like, I don't really like what all this stands for. I'd like to support this less. So in our household, we're able to do that a little bit. It's sort of like if you have the flexibility to decide a little bit about where your food comes from or who you're going to support with buying new products of any kind, right? So in my thinking, it's a lot about the environment, but I do want to harp on the point that it's a privileged perspective to be able to stand here and say we have the privilege of not having a second car because we have that economic flexibility, job flexibility to be able to make that decision, which is not on the table for everybody. But
I understand. How about you, Aaron?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I could put a number on the number of miles. And I'm going to take a different view of the climate thing, and I wonder how that's going to shift the infrastructure needs as, climate events like, a horrible flooding we just experienced happen more often. It could be an opportunity, honestly, with new infrastructure replacing old, to put more of an emphasis on pedestrian and cycling infrastructure. But, there's going to be challenges too. I mean, I would hate to say it, but, we might be actually getting more rain in our county in the future. And that obviously, limits certain things you can do by bike, although you can bike in any weather. But going back to what Doug said about bike racks, I would love to see, and I think there's some folks in town actually working on this, some like covered bike parking downtown. I think that would be a great, I think it would be used, number one, and I think number two, it would be a great symbol for the town to say, like, yeah, we know people are commuting by bike and doing things in town by bike, and this is the place for them so they can leave their bike for, hours at a time and walk around downtown or go to work.
Businesses in town that support personal transportation devices like bicycles, do you have any top 3 favorites or anything that support this, or businesses that you would like to see do better?
Look, visit all your local bike shops. They're all great. I think any of the local bike shops are awesome. They're doing the work of getting more bikes out there.
I'm not unaware. Does Ingalls have any bike racks?
They have one. Yeah, it's kind of funky, but yeah, they actually have a bike rack, so that's more than some of them do.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's the sign, right? Like if you go to a business and there's not a place to park your bike, that's pretty much all you need to know. That they haven't really thought about the fact that they want people to ride there on their bike.
And so the city could have a hand in that, perhaps.
It would be nice.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's other models in other cities for, public-private partnerships of like purchasing bike racks and things like that for new businesses or required bike parking in the zoning ordinances for new buildings. I mean, that could certainly be an option as well. I hate to call out, specific businesses really, but I think a lot of the bigger chain places it's not on the top of their list necessarily. I hate to toot my own horn at Oscar Blues, but we certainly, it's part of our company culture, and we've got lots of places for people to park bikes, and they're right out front. You can't miss them when you're walking in. It's the first thing you see.
Didn't they start Oscar Blues here out east, partly because he loves mountain biking?
Yeah, the founder visited the area to ride his mountain bike and fell in love with it, and said if we're going to build anywhere on the East Coast, it's got to be somewhere I'm going to enjoy visiting, and I can ride my bike when I'm out there. So that's how we got here. Yeah.
So I'm going to give you a big opportunity here. Is to see if you could thank a business for a bike-friendly environment. Who would that be? So I'll just we'll finish with Doug on that one. But go ahead.
Yeah, it's the bike shop. We're lucky to have the bike shops we have, and I know that's probably an easy answer. I'm excited for I think as the multi-use path gets extended and the acoustic trail gets built, as you go down to like Traveler's Rest and the Swamp Rabbit Trail, there's entire businesses that popped up along the trail whose focus is because the trail is there, they have a business there. I think we'll see more and more of that.
Something along the lines of the Virginia Creeper Trail?
Yeah, it's the same concept. So I think the acoustic trail is gonna bring many of those to the area, and then hopefully at the same time the city's bike path is extended, and there's opportunities along there. I mean, the King Street sort of district, Railroad Avenue district, that could be a bike hub really in the future.
All right, Lauren, have you got a?
I don't know that I have too much to say on this one. One thing I'm thinking is that I don't know what most businesses have to gain at this point from making their business more bike friendly. There aren't enough folks.
Incentives?
Yeah, I don't think enough folks are biking to businesses, so the businesses need to take that step, which is sort of, I think, to your point, the chicken and egg, that if
Right.
more of us were riding our bikes, and this morning I was on Main Street and didn't know where to put the bike, like without it being in the way of something. So that sort of moment where you're like, I'm here with my bike, but if I put it here, it blocks this, and if I put it there, it blocks this. So there's just not that much incentive. So I don't blame businesses, but I think as citizens, we can probably, if we show up on our bikes and speak up to the council, there's some movement possible there.
Some way to get the word out, and maybe that's what this is.
Yeah, maybe.
How about you, Lynn?
Well, other than bike shops, and especially the hub, because they have a little gathering place and everything right out of the forest, and people enjoy that as well as the bike shop. And but Oscar Blues, because as far as a non-bike business, you'll see more bikes there than anywhere in town. So, and they help that path go there. That wise off from the main path, so,
Okay.
yeah.
How about you, Doug?
It's sort of been said, but there really isn't a lot of incentive for businesses to do this. But I was excited when the chamber, I think I mentioned that earlier, they put a nice repair stand out front of their building. That's a nice commitment that's visible and something we can see and feel and use, which is great. The Transylvania Tourism Board has actually been one of the few tourism boards to reinvest back in the community, and whether it's trails or pathways, they've taken some actual effort there to do that. So I've actually been pretty impressed with their efforts in that regard, and that's coming directly from really all the businesses. All of the businesses that attract people to this area create that revenue by bringing people here and getting people to stay here. And so there is obviously some impacts we don't like about tourism, but then we have to remember that sometimes there's some positive things too, where that money can get funneled back into our infrastructure. So I'd love to see more of that. I think we've seen it start to happen a little bit, which is awesome. I want to encourage them to keep on doing that and keep on spending more of the money that is brought here in that way.
It's so it's a problem that is it's a good problem in a way that the Brevard has so many cyclists that it's a problem. Twisted logic there, but in a way it's a good problem to have, and we'll maybe work towards a better end. Speaking of end, I think we've come to our time. Do we have any questions from online, Doug? All right. So everybody, I sure appreciate your help tonight and showing up and answering all these questions.
Do you have a question?
You have a question?
A couple of questions, actually. I know nothing about the e-bike, so I wanted to see if somebody can describe, like distances that you can go and all of that. And the other question that I had is, what are you doing as far as education? I'm not a biker, so, because I live up in the mountains, and I know my knees wouldn't, I wouldn't have the stamina for it. But I think that there's a lot of people that just don't have the education as to the communications with bikers. Like, what are the rules of a biker? How do they let people know what they're doing? So what is this community, biking community here in Brevard, doing to educate people so that it might make it safer for everybody?
Well, Lynn is the only e-bike owner, I believe.
We have one e-bike. One of our bikes is an e-bike, yeah.
They have different brands have different ranges, but mine's about 45 miles on one charge. So I can go, I rode from the high school to the Blue Ridge Parkway and back, which I only wanted to do it once because there's so much traffic on 276. But I did it when it was off season and during the middle of the week, later in the day, and it still was a lot of exercise. It was 45 miles, and
how much of it is electric and how much, I guess it depends, does it recharge?
It depends on what kind of bike you've got, right? So we have an electric assist bike, right? So in order for the motor to kick in, you have to be pedaling. And you can choose the level of assist that you like. So our children collectively weigh quite a bit, and then if I put a week's worth of groceries in the bucket with them, I'm not gonna go anywhere if I don't have some assist. So in our house, it's been this sweet middle ground. It's not a car, it's not a traditional bike. It's something in the middle that's enabling us to travel farther distances with bigger weight. But it still is effort on the legs. It's not a motorized vehicle, right? The electric assist only kicks in when you initiate the pedal power.
And then you charge it, is there charging places in town that you might even suggest? I mean,
it takes a long time to charge
it
it.
does take a long.
Yeah, 6 or 7 hours. Depends on how.
It's not like an iPhone, you can just put it
No.
Our bike doesn't have a range as big as Lynn's, so if I'm going on a trip that's 12 miles, I'll bring the charger with me, detach the battery from the bike wherever I'm going to teach or work or whatever, plug it into somebody's wall outlet, and then I can get back in the bike and be assured of getting home, because we have gotten caught without any charge on the bike with a bucket of stuff that we can't actually move without the electric assist. So this whole process it's tricky.
Yeah.
And I tow my 80-pound dog behind me.
I love your
Sometimes
education
so
question.
Yeah.
And I wonder if somebody could speak to that, because I think that's a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was gonna say Pisgah Sorba, but there's other groups in town. I mean, Blue Ridge Bicycle Club
Yeah.
and things like that.
There's some local nonprofits. I will just one quick thing on the batteries. I do also think you can get extra batteries too, right? To take
Yeah.
with you on some of these bikes. So
They're
sometimes
about
you
7
can
pounds.
bring them with you if you really
Yeah.
needed to. But in terms of education, so I'm on the board for Pisgah Sorba, which is a local mountain bike trails and advocacy group. So we're really more focused on the forest, on the dirt trails. But we do try to tell people in terms of our world, how we interact with other people on the trail, and whether that's an equestrian user, whether it's a hiker, another cyclist. When you cross paths with somebody, how do we do that? And that's a big part of what we do to try to make sure that we can all get along out there and that we can all continue to have access to the forest. Because for us, it took a long time for mountain bikers to get access to some of these places, and the last thing we want to do is run into conflicts with other trail users and jeopardize that access. There's other cyclist groups in town, but at the end of the day, I think when we're talking about road users and commuters, to me, that's a job for our local government and our community to put that message out there to the folks and communicate that message about sharing the road, and that's the message that the state says a lot. We share the road. We're all entitled to the space, whether it's bikes or cars or anybody, and it's about making sure that message is the one that's put out there. And unfortunately, what I hear from a lot of elected leaders is really not so favorable towards cyclists, and you can read between the lines sometimes what they're trying to say, but we need folks to really proactively step up and be positive about the fact that we can share space and we can all utilize the roads together. That's got to come from the folks that are really, our leaders in the community, I think, in our government roles too.
And cyclists are supposed to follow the rules of the same as a car.
Yeah.
So, signal, all of those things.
Midge.
My daughter lives in Menlo Park in San Francisco area. What I'm asking is, has the city looked into any other cities or areas that have this model that they went forth with to put in all of these things that makes it easier and they've got so many things set up on the major roadways, and they've all worked together to try to get this kind of model set up. And I was wondering if the city council has looked into something like that, which would really help to look overall at how the layout of the streets and the sidewalks are in Clark, and be more effective at doing a study to see what the possibilities are.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not on city council yet, but but I certainly pay attention to it a lot. And there's a couple things. I think some of it has been we've used the excuse of being a small town as to not do some, prioritize certain things like that. I think they have looked at other cities and what they're doing. We look a little bit nearer to home and, roughly the same size as Brevard, usually when they're looking at those kind of things. But it certainly hasn't been a major priority since, Brevard became the cycling capital of the South. We say those words a lot, and the tourism board certainly has jumped onto that. But I have concerns that the perception versus reality when we attract cyclists here, and then they actually come here, and the infrastructure on the ground is completely disconnected from what they heard when they were planning their trip here.
Well, so let me ask you, has the city council, county commissioners, anybody, have they heard the figures assembled as to how big a biking economy is in Transylvania?
Yes,
Oh
they
yeah,
have.
yes, they're all well
They've
aware
all
of
heard.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
they're all
it's
very aware.
massive. It's so important to our city and our county. And I think to be more positive, I think we're getting there. I mean, the Acoustic Trail is going to happen. That project is going to happen.
And there is a comprehensive bike plan, right?
Yes,
So
yeah.
there is, the city has a comprehensive bike plan. I'm not up to speed on where it is at this moment, but it's a lot of stuff, and it entails partnerships with the Department of Transportation, right, who's funding. When roads are expanded, is there an opportunity to put in bike lanes? Can we be more mindful of what's happening with our dollars from the state versus local dollars? But yeah, the critical mass of elected officials has to get behind that, and I don't know that we're there yet, though there's hope.
And there's a balance too between the city and the county. And
Right.
they're two
Sure.
different entities, and we have to always keep that in mind. The city can be a lot more progressive about bikes, but if the county is not working in
True.
concert with them, it makes it very difficult to extend that pathway
Right.
into areas that go beyond the city limits. So you've got to have a whole community doing it together, and when the county commissioners they hear the information, but they don't necessarily respond to it the way the city is, where they're being a little bit more proactive about it. I mean, they've all been given the presentation. Conserving Carolina, Friends of Acoustic Trail has talked to them, I don't even know how many times, to both sets of governing bodies. And the information is there, but it is a matter of prioritizing that and making sure that you're putting out policy and you're doing things as governing leaders to actually bring these things into reality.
I think too, every little piece that we add adds to the positivity around it, and that creates pressure on the people that are naysaying. I mean, the Acoustic Trail, when that thing happens, all the people that are naysaying it right now are going to say that they were for it all along. I guarantee you, because it's going to be the most amazing thing.
Is the Acoustic Trail part of that cutoff that you can take? Because I went today to Larry's Auto, and I took that way, you get on to 64.
Yeah.
And I was amazed at how they had set up, the bike paths on both sides of the road.
Right.
And then it looks like they're going to start building things along that corridor. Is that correct?
Well, the Acoustic Trail is the rail line, the old rail bed. Yeah, yeah. So it's near there, but it would stretch. I think it's 17, 18 miles. It would stretch from Brevard all the way into Hendersonville, and they're pulling up the rail as we speak, and
happening.
getting ready for it. So
Exciting.
yeah.
And the excitement, because I as a driver, because I live where she lives, we're neighbors. these bikers that are 5 abreast,
Mhm.
and then the cars are just, zooming in and out between them. It just worries me that the safety of the bicycle
Yeah.
is a real problem.
Yeah. And there's certainly, I mean, it's like mountain biking too. There's mountain bikers that race down the trail and ignore, hikers and blow by people, and they give everybody a bad name. They give all the mountain bikers a bad name. But there's also mountain bikers that will stop anytime they see anybody and be off the trail. And, road cycling is the same way. Cyclists, you're supposed to be no more than 2 abreast and stay in a group so that when somebody passes you, they can pass you all at one time. They don't have to do this leapfrogging thing. And, it goes both ways. Cyclists need to adhere to those things,
And the car drivers, I've seen what some of them do, and it's so scary.
Yeah,
It is.
It is.
Imagine being the one on the bike.
So when I'm passing a bicyclist, I get into the full left lane, and I speed up so that I can get around them and not cause problems. Is that the best thing to do?
yeah. Yeah, and waiting until you have, it's just like passing a car. You wouldn't pass a car in a curve. I see that happens to me all the time on a bike. Is I can hear them revving up and going, and I can see what they can see, and I know that I can't see if there's an oncoming car or not. And if they're passing right when a car comes around that bend, it's not going to be good for anybody.
So do you think that there can be something where both drivers and bicyclists could start to understand? Because I think so many people driving cars just get so angry and
Yeah.
the news and
That's the wish list I mentioned earlier, right? Like this idea, like, can we talk to one another? Can we be patient?
Has there ever been a collaboration besides let's say the assault on the Carolinas is sort of a collaboration of all the cycling businesses in the community, right? I assume they all participate in that in some way. Has there been any other collaboration, like demonstrations? I was sent a question about if
articles, there's just some kind of etiquette. Because I'm the same way. I don't really know what's correct etiquette. Do I signal the biker that I'm going to be passing them?
That you care is like probably more than sufficient for now.
Yeah.
That you are aware.
Yes.
You are trying to do
Yeah.
your best, that's it.
Right now.
Yeah.
If one person gets educated, they can spread the
Yeah,
education.
I know you have such good questions. Like, what can we be doing?
right, I would think a collaboration of it would behoove the businesses, the cycling businesses here, to have an event. And I was also sent something about this e-bike, and it has a 35-mile range and at 20 miles per hour, but to inquire about if an e-bike demo at, say, something like that, anything it could be incorporated into a large biking awareness event.
Yeah.
And eventually, if you go to Charlotte, you can put quarter in or whatever, your
Right.
charge card in, get a bike and travel around. to
Oh, yeah.
find
Bike shares.
Yeah.
They're fabulous.
Austin, Washington.
I've done it all over New York City, Manhattan, and they have fabulous bike paths. It's so crazy, cars and people and everything, but cars, parked cars, bike path, curb,
Right.
and then the sidewalk. It's
Park and ride.
fabulous. You have to pay attention still, because there's delivery guys zipping by you and all that, but it's just wonderful how much infrastructure they have in Manhattan, where you can go all over the place, and I felt safe there. Every-
Just for the economy of a little town like, if this is one of the centers of biking, that would bring revenue in. I just wonder if the city
Yes, it
council
would.
understands that.
The businesses understand, everybody understands it.
I-
And that's the thing Aaron's saying, is that we've all really come to enjoy the benefits of cycling economically in this area. But what we're talking about really is more of a cultural shift overall to be more than just a place that welcomes their dollars, but also a place that allows its residents to live and ride a bike the same way that they're encouraging folks to come here and do from out of town. It's really easy to just get on the bike path and ride the section that's completed and have a great time and then leave. But we are here all the time, and we want to be able to ride our bikes to the pharmacy and to the grocery store and to work and to do all these things without feeling like we're risking life and limb to do it. So it is a cultural shift, and we're never going to get to a point where we don't have cars on the road. That's not what any of us, I think, are advocating for, because we all are going to need a car at some point to get a little further than we can on our bike. But we want to be able to live in a world where people respect cyclists and where people in their on their bikes respect people in cars just the same way, so that we can all do this together and create shared spaces. This is just the fact that our roads right now are built for cars, and that's it. They're not built for bikes.
Now, do you guys, since I'm not a biker, do you guys have designated in your mind or a code or something like this one-way street is the best one for bikers or that type of thing?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think, I don't ever think about it, but you just, you know what's the safest way and what's not. I mean, I'm never on Caldwell on a bike, almost never.
I do the side.
I'd much rather go 3 miles extra than have to, deal with that. So it's things like that. And like I said about the downtown master plan that shows those painted bike lanes, on certain streets in downtown. I mean, that's a part of that. Then it's like, it's not just in my head or anybody's head. It's a physical manifestation of like, yes, bikes should go here. If you're on a bike and you're safely trying to get from one side of town to the other, you should use Jordan Street or Morgan Street.
And it's a signal to the drivers too.
Yes.
It's not just a signal to the biker, it's a signal to the driver to like, here's their space, here's your space, and you're not going to, have that conflict. Everybody's got room to do what they need to do.
Yeah.
Okay. We're coming up on 1 hour. And anybody have any final thoughts? I want to see some collaboration. I want to see something happen.
Collaboration, I was just gonna say,
that
collaboration is the
something
word,
where the
yeah.
bicycle places come together and like an e-bike demonstration would be a part of it, and and safe biking things, and helmet giveaways and that sort of thing.
I'll just plug, if you are interested in that kind of thing, there's a guy in Asheville named Mike Sewell who runs Asheville on Bikes. And that's what it's an advocacy group, I mean, for all things bikes. So infrastructure, they do events. They run a candidates forum in Asheville. Asheville on Bikes does. So they ask questions of the candidates only about bike infrastructure and getting around Asheville on bikes. So I think we're almost there. I mean, I think those groups are gonna start
You're
forming.
probably interested in cycling in Brevard from Asheville.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Totally.
there's a lot of connections to that group already down here with folks in
Yeah.
Vesperia, Sorbo. We've got some connections to Asheville on Bikes and Asheville on Paved, and those are great organizations. They're doing great work up there.
Yeah.
We'll start to see more stuff like that down here, I think,
Yeah.
soon enough.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. It was a great talk.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Audience,
Being here.
great questions.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks
And
for the questions.
Thanks, Doug. By the way.
Thanks,
Doug.
Doug.
Thank you.